We have program notes out on every one of the tables. That's our schedule through the end of March. So you can see next week we're going to have Pro Kids. Mary Kay Kohler will be here, and she will be talking about the work that they are doing. And you can see all the rest of the topics that we have as you go through the month. So we usually start off our meetings with announcements. Hello. Here? Yes. So we start off with announcements. Alberta, do you want me to take over this so that you can mess with the equipment? So if there are any announcements that people would like to make to keep us on board of things that are going on, and I would really appreciate you writing them down and giving it to me, because Peter's not here this week. His daughter got married, and then he came back home and he got sick. So he brought some germs, I guess, back from wherever he was. And then Ellen Beerhorst, who did the newsletter last week, I don't know if you know, she had an emergency appendectomy. And so she can't be here, but if we send her the notes and information, then she will get the newsletter out. So think of Ellen. She says she's back on her feet, but it was an emergency appendectomy and she was not pleased. So I do know that there's a SPAN meeting on Wednesday, the 23rd at 6:30 at the First Unitarian Church. And that's really important to see the work that they're doing. Plus, you can see on our calendar, they will be out here for a day's presentation in case you can't meet those meetings. So, are there any other announcements?
We have a lady who's got the Ruth Bader Ginsburg dollies.
I volunteer at 10,000 Villages. My name is Pat Smart, and today I have brought several Ruth Bader Ginsburg keychains. If anybody's interested in purchasing them, they are $10 a piece. If you're not familiar with 10,000 Villages, it is a non-profit fair trade store where we contract with people around the world in various groups, various artisan groups. So anything you buy at 10,000 Villages helps somebody else. And I just brought these in case anybody wants them. So after I eat, I'll go back there and set them up, and if anybody wants one, just stop by.
And I have an announcement from the Mount Adams Democrats Kickoff for 2019. And they're going to have an open house at the Lisa Hunter and Dave Moore's house at 981 Hatch Street, Mount Evans. And I will give this to Peter, or it's Peter's fill-in. It says, Mount Adams Democrats worked hard in 2018 to help the Blue Wave happen in Hamilton County. We work hard, now it's time to party hard. You can help the celebration by bringing an appetizer and a beverage. Chili will be provided. Here you go. So, in Mount Adams, there's a very nice kickoff on Monday, January 28th, from 6:30 to 8:30. And it sounds delicious. I think I might take that one. So, Monday, January 28th, a week from Wednesday. And with a little luck, it'll be a little warmer by then. Other announcements? Go ahead.
May I just
Martha.
say this? I'm real glad that we got these guys that are from the Angels. And I just wanted to point out, Pat Smart, who just spoke, invited them to our Unitarian church a year or two ago. And we enjoyed that a lot. And that led me to mention it to Katie. They're a good group. We all know we want to talk together. So I appreciate Pat letting us all know about them.
Other announcements, Bill?
Just really quickly, move to amend our group on, we're also working with American Promise. We are growing up, we're getting better, and we are available for house parties, for the local Democratic parties, for churches, anybody. So if you need a program and you share this concern, get in touch with us.
I'd just like to say this evening there's a program at First Unitarian Church at 7 o'clock by the Free Inquiry Group, and it's going to be a man who spoke to us, Pierre Bergeron, is going to talk about the criminal justice system and the judiciary, criminal justice reform and the judiciary at 7 on Reeser Street, just off of Reading Road. No. Linton, sorry. Linton, I'm getting my UUs confused.
Other announcements? And without further ado, does that bring us to Rob? Okay, without further ado, and I think without further computer interruptions, it doesn't seem to be working. The good Lord doesn't seem to be working with us today on the internet thing here. The internet doesn't work, we know that doesn't work, but we're not able to get this thing. We're not able to get his drive to come up on my machine, and then once we get that on my machine, I've lost a screw. Talk about being unscrewed here. I don't want to go there. My brother would know the jokes on that one, guys. And, that's what it looks like. Someone would have to hold it. And I would be willing to do that. I really would, so that you could see this very fine thing that they have for us today, but it doesn't look like we're going to have it. I really tried. I really tried. I tried. I can do a lot of internet things or connected things, but there are just some things I can't do. So, without further ado, today we have Rob coming to us from Warren County?
No. I'm not in Montgomery. I was in Warren.
Better Angels, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. You know what? Before I start on Better Angels, I want to make a point. It's not a partisan point, but I want to give a shout out. He's not expecting it, but I want to give a shout out to Ralph, who's at the end of this table. And this summer we were doing a lot of canvassing. And from my home, and Ralph and his wife showed up once to canvass. I'd never met them before. I had just recently moved into Montgomery, and what happened was we started talking, and he said he was from New Jersey, and I said, really? I said, I'm from New Jersey, and I said, what part of Jersey? And he said, well, it's North Jersey, and I said, well, I'm from North Jersey. And I said, what part of North Jersey? And he said, Millburn. And I said, I graduated from Millburn High School. And he said, I graduated from Millburn High School. And so we started talking, and I just couldn't believe I found another graduate. Now, he happens, I hate to say this, Ralph, but you graduated 10 years before I did. But I thought that was just an amazing situation, that here we're doing a canvassing in Montgomery, Ohio, and two alums from Millburn High School in New Jersey meet. So anyway, I want to give a shout out because I haven't seen him since the canvassing times. In any event, Better Angels. After the election of 2016, I think it's fair to say that most of us in here, not all of us, were very upset about the election. And we were particularly upset because we felt like, how do we communicate with the other side? How can we even talk to them? We have so little in common. And it was at that point that, probably a month or so after that, Beth Goldenfield, who is the chairperson of the Warren County Democratic Party, made a presentation at one of our leadership gatherings and said that there was going to be a group that was going to be getting together that had never gotten together before, which is trying to get reds and blues together to find a way to communicate. And a number of us in the Democratic Party volunteered, and I was one. And I was actually not able to make the very first meeting they had. It was an all-day or maybe even an all-weekend meeting. It was an all-weekend meeting. And I wasn't able to make the first one because I was out of town, but I got involved in the second one and have been involved ever since. And it was formulated in large part because of the intensity between the two sides and the inability to communicate, which was reflected perfectly well in our Congress and our representatives. who could not talk to each other, who could not seem to find common ground. And I will tell you, when I went to my very first Better Angels workshop, it was amazing to me. It was amazing that, and it was very structured, because Better Angels, by the way, so you know, is not an attempt to change people's mind. It's an attempt to go into their mind and find out where you agree, rather than where you disagree. And by focusing on where you agree, then you're able to move forward and maybe deal with some of the harder issues. So, for example, today, I was riding with Greg Smith. I actually picked him up in Warren County and came down here, and we talked all the way. And we talked about some contentious issues that most of you, if you have family members who still support Donald Trump, you probably can't even talk about it. But we had a conversation almost all the way down about where we agree, where we disagree, and other situations. So I'm not going to go on at this point. I am simply going to say that when this presentation is over, and we want you to interrupt us at any point where you have a question, but I'm going to turn this over to David. And when David, by the time David is finished, and well into that, maybe at the end, we're going to pass out a sheet. And anyone that wants to know more about our Better Angels workshop, we're going to ask for your contact information. We'll pass that out. Please make sure you sign that before you leave today. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to David, who was the one who helped organize that very first workshop, which occurred in South Lebanon, Ohio. David?
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. It's an honor to be here. I am a Red, so thank you for letting me come, and Reds and Blues come here today to be with you. Although at bottom, we're all human beings and we all share the same country. Are you hearing this okay?
Horizontal.
Horizontal.
Where's the other mic?
Oh.
Where's the other microphone?
Does this work right here?
Okay.
This is better.
That's good.
There we go. We'll just hold it like this.
That's right.
Oh, speaker feedback. If I hold it like this, then it's fine?
No.
Okay. No, it's horizontal. Okay, great. I'll stick to the instructions. So, as Rob mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of Better Angels. It began the story starts a couple days after the 2016 election, those very peaceful days, as we all remember. My friend and colleague, David Blankenhorn, who lives in New York City, he called me and said, yeah, David, it's a morgue up here on the Upper West Side where he lives. Everyone's depressed. And I live in South Lebanon and Warren County, which, of course, Warren County went, 67%, I think, for President Trump. And I said, well, that's interesting, David. I'm hearing a lot of people talk about hope and change. And David said, you know what? We've got to be able to get the two sides to talk to each other. Is there anything that we could do? And so we got to talking, and he said, what if we brought together 10 Reds, Trump supporters, and 10 Blues, people who voted for Hillary Clinton, brought those folks together for a weekend here in your town, South Lebanon, where I live, just to see as an experiment, to see if we could talk with each other. So we did, and Noha, who is a Better Angel, and Pat Smart were two of those Better Angels who were first there. And you know what? It took off from there. NPR heard about the workshop and did an hour-long interview with a couple of the people who were at the workshop. And then people who were at the NPR interview said, how can I do this in my community? Today we have over 6,000 dues-paying members in every state in the country. And we've had over 200 workshops and dozens more happening every month. And just this month, we have workshops happening everywhere from Santa Monica, California, to Fairfield, Iowa, to Westport, Massachusetts. It's just everywhere now. So the idea is, as Rob said, we are not even necessarily trying to be a centrist organization, although we welcome centrists. We're a group of Reds and Blues, from diehard conservatives to diehard progressives and everyone in the middle, who are interested in better understanding where we're coming from and looking for the common ground that we do have, and just building relationships with each other, getting to know each other. So we have 3 basic kinds of workshops that we do. The first is called a red-blue workshop. This is where you bring, it's usually now, we don't do the weekends anymore, we do a day-long or a 3-hour version. And we will have a workshop coming up this spring, which we'll tell you more about which you can learn more about if you sign up. So we have a day-long red-blue workshop coming up this spring in Cincinnati. You bring 7 reds and 7 blues together. You have a blue organizer, you have a red organizer, and we come together for a day, and we have some exercises we go through together to address stereotypes that we have of each other, to dive deeper into understanding the values that we hold, and we're listening to each other and voicing our own values. And then by the end of the day, we ask, what could we do together as reds and blues to address the polarization in our country? Not necessarily to change our minds about the core issues, but to reduce the polarization and work on common ground where there is common ground. Now, we have a 3-hour version of that day-long red-blue workshop as well. We also have a skills workshop where you can have as many people as you want. You can have 50 blues there and no reds. And a skills workshop is a 2.5-hour workshop where we talk about skills to better help us to listen to people who disagree with us politically, and also to better help us voice our own values and views so that we can better talk to people in a way that we're likely to be heard. So that's a skills workshop, and we will have those coming up as well this year. So, and then after a workshop, there's the opportunity to join what we call a Better Angels Alliance, and all of the Better Angels you'll hear from today, we're all a part of the Better Angels Southwest Ohio Alliance. We meet monthly, and we are in the midst of finding an issue to address reforming politics. And so that's the thing that we're doing right now. We've been meeting for over a year, and once you join a workshop, then you're welcome to join the Alliance and have a party. So the last thing I'll say is that nationally, we received a lot of attention. MSNBC has featured us twice. They came out to a workshop and filmed it and everything. We've been in the Washington Post. ABC News Nightline did a beautiful segment. A lot of mainstream news outlets are very interested in what is happening because it's a hopeful story of what happens when we discover the humanity in each other. And so there's a lot of interest in it nationally from the media and from grassroots citizens. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Smith, who is one of the first Better Angels as well. Greg.
Thank you. I'm moving slow. I just got released from my what are they called, the bone doctors? Yeah, that's the one. So I've been just having some struggles with things. But here I am, and I'm grateful that Rob came and picked me up today, and he is right. We do have some similarities. Right now, we've reached the goal of our first goal. We agree that we're both wearing a white shirt. We're both white men, and we both love Jesus. So that's a good start right there. So I went to the second thing, the workshop, and not having any idea what it was, because I was I still am, a real diehard Republican with a good mind, an open mind to hear the other side. So, and I like to say, I am a man of faith, so I make a lot of reference to God, and I make no apologies for that. But I've been accepted for that. One of my best friends in the organization is of Muslim faith. We are just best friends. We do a lot of things together. We have an understanding of each other. He's not what he has taught me is the radical Islam. He's not that. He's just a good man with a lot of love, and we get along great. So, but when I got to the workshop, that's where I met him, Kuyar Mustashi, and and is a great man. But that's where I learned. And when I shake, it's because I have a sciatic and I got problems, so I have a hard time standing. But
Sit.
okay, I will. I recorded my daughter the other night singing the national anthem, and the camera was like that. And people said, "You must have really been nervous." I said, "No, I have a condition, but I'm better." Deep breath. So what I learned in Better Angels was to. There's a reason that God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth, so I try to do more listening than talking, and that is a policy of ours. That when someone's speaking, we don't interrupt. We give them their say. We give them their opportunity to say, and we listen, and we try to learn. And so I changed. It was a change. It was a life-changing thing for me because I immediately had to change a lot of things and take some things off my Facebook that I'd said some horrible things, but I let Kuyar see them. And some of us still there, but because I have to be open, I have to be transparent, and I have to be real. Because if we're not all real with ourselves, we're not going to be real with each other, and we're not going to be accepted as a phony. So that's what we do. But I started changing. He and I started giving talks to a lot of different people, and well received by everyone. And pretty much that's it. What else do I need to cover? That's pretty much it. It worked for me. I still feel...
Places you've spoken together.
Yeah, we've been to, well, first of all, like he said, we were like headliners on a CBS episode. We did a workshop for gun rights and gun control for CBS. It was aired on a CBS special program. We did the ABC thing, ABC Nightline. But we went up to Columbus and spoke to the Kettering Foundation. That's where I met. She's asked me not to use her name publicly, but she said I can talk about meeting her. But she is right now, presently, the personal advisor to President Obama. So I'm allowed to use her picture in that, but she said just don't run my name around everywhere because the wrong people can get that and do wrong things with it. But a sweet lady, and when I gave my presentation, there was a question and answer period. I had no idea who this woman was, and she was moved. She even had a question in it. Do you feel differently today about Obama than you did then? That's a good reason that she'd ask that question. You'll find out later. But and my answer was pleasing to her because I do. First of all, I have a greater respect for him as not just the president. I respected him as a president. I didn't agree with him, but personally, I was mean, just flat out mean. So I changed that, and I can honestly say that it's just different. But so then we go to a break. This woman comes up to me and she's in tears. She says, "I just got to hug you." I'm like, "Wow, it wasn't all that." She said, "Well, it is." She said, it meant a lot to me. And she didn't yet tell me who she was. So we go back from the break and we sit down. And this woman gets up and she speaks and she informs us that she's personal advisor to President Obama. And I'm like, holy cow, that's her. So that's when I went back and got her back. I said, I gotta have a picture with you. And but that was one of the places. That was the Kettering Foundation, and they were trying to make move. And for the college, Ohio College presidents were there, and it's something to try to get our program involved with more Ohio colleges starting here. So am I going to turn this over to Noha now? So anyway, another one of my beautiful friends from the left, and she is of Muslim faith, and she's an amazing lady and a good friend, and it's Noha.
Hi everybody, I'm sorry I came in late, but my name is Noha. Many of you know me. I was one of the very first people who joined the very first group that David reached out to. Okay, is this better? Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I got a call 3 weeks after the 2016 election from the Warren County Chair, Weidenfeld, she asked me to reach out to a Muslim for this group that David was putting together. And I tried to find somebody who looks like, Muslim, like somebody with a veil or something. And I failed miserably because nobody was willing to go in 3 weeks later with all our wounds so open and bleeding, and we're so shattered, and nobody was willing to give up their whole weekend. And I wasn't going to give this opportunity away. So I said, I'm going to go in. And I had a procedure that morning, and I told David, I'm not going to sure what my mental status is going to be like, but I'm going to need a drive that night. I went in. It was eye-opening and mind-blowing. It was a beautiful experience. Brutal at one point. Just remember, it's 3 weeks after the 16 elections. There were very harsh moments that we can't forget, me personally, to this day. But it was a great experiment. After that, we didn't know what was going to happen. Then it went viral with the NPR segment that happened. And people started reaching out and wanted workshops all over the country. And then they did the bus tour. And we had the first convention. And Better Angels started growing. Running those workshops, the best part of Better Angels is that it's the optimal environment for people from both sides to come together at the same table and share their thoughts comfortably. It's nice to come with people from the other side and hear what their thoughts are. People you'll never meet in your very comfort zone or your comfort circle. And it's nice to hear what these people are thinking, because we realized after 2+ years that we all love the country in the same way. We might have different aspects of thinking of the solutions of solving it, or ways of finding the way to the target point, but we all love it in the same way. We're all very passionate about it the same way. But it's the optimal environment to speak openly and comfortably without using any bad language or, it's just, people come in the workshops at first very uptight and they don't want to open up, but 2 hours in through the workshop, they're very, they've eased up, they've mellowed down, and you feel everything is just flowing easily out of them, and they feel like, this is why I need to be here. And everybody thanks us at the very end, like, thank you for doing this. I think it's a great organization. Many people have come to terms with what we're trying to do here, and I hope to see it growing more and more.
Hello, y'all. My name is Bill Fry. My name is Bill Fry, and I got into Better Angels up here. Can you hear me now back there? Okay. Usually people say I speak way too loud. I'll go ahead and step it up. Anyways, I got into Better Angels at the second meeting that they had. Somebody from the first meeting had put my name in and volunteered me for the second meeting. So I didn't even know what was going on until I showed up. But my background is military. My father was military. I don't have a hometown like most people. We never got involved in politics in my family. First off, the military is not allowed to be involved in politics. You can't even have a bumper sticker on your car. So after I graduated high school, I joined the Marines and spent 20 years in the Marines. So the first 38 years of my life was living all around the United States and foreign countries. And politics just wasn't something we dealt with. After I got out, I came to Ohio, and it was 9/11 that woke me up. And I said, I got to get involved here because there's some stuff that's really crazy going on in our government that I'm not even aware of. And look what it's led to. We've got two Twin Towers laying on the ground now, and a whole lot of people dead. And so that was my political awakening. And then in 2009, I got involved with a group called GO. and that was GOOH, and it stood for Get Out of Our House. And it was a process, nonpartisan, where the citizens would be electing our own congressman rather than allowing the two political parties to do that. Shortly after I got involved in that, though, we got overrun by the momentum of the Tea Party, and it basically took the fire out of our organization. And I joined the Tea Party shortly after that. Today I'm a board member of the Warren County Tea Party, and so I was invited to the Lion's Den, as Pat said today. But anyways, the Tea Party today is pretty much an educational thing as far as our Warren County. You know, a lot of information going out in emails. We don't go out and protest. I really never saw any value in that. It make you feel good, but it really didn't seem to change anybody's opinions, or you never really talked to the people who were changed, whose opinions could be changed or held accountable, if you would. It's just an opportunity to let some steam off. So, long story short, I heard about Better Angels. A little bit louder? Okay, long story short, I'd heard about Better Angels, and when I got involved, I went to the first workshop, and I really, it felt like an opportunity to get a chance to speak to the other side and essentially to have your say, and they could have their say without anybody getting excited. And I didn't see the real value in it at that first meeting, but it was the second, third, and fourth individual meetings where we all get together, not a workshop, but an actual where we sit around and work together. And that's where I started to see the value in Better Angels. If you just go to the workshop, the very first thing, you just don't quite see how it's working. It's just a process you're going through at that time. So I encourage you, if anybody wants to go to the workshop, and if you're disappointed with the way the workshop works out, come to some of the meetings, because then you'll see the results and what's happening and how we can actually work together. So I guess that's pretty much my story, and I'm going to let Pat come up here, who welcomed me to the Lion's Den.
So I guess you all are the lions. So am I. My introduction to Better Angels came also from Beth Goldenfield in Warren County. And when I'm almost swallowing the thing. But when she came, or when she invited me, she said it's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I said, well, I think I can come on Friday. That's when I was talking to David Lapp. And he said, you don't understand. It's Friday evening, all day Saturday, and Sunday evening. So I had to give some serious thought to whether I would want to commit that amount of time for something that truly was an unknown quantity. However, as with so many other people, I was highly distressed by the results of the election and by the fact that we can't even talk to our neighbors about those things. I would go to the gym and I would not dare say anything about politics, because then, I'm new in town anyway, and that would pretty well seal my fate. So I went to that first workshop, and what I came away with was, number one, it was very difficult. Number two, everybody who had committed to that group was there for all 3 meetings, which I found incredible. So we were serious about what we were doing. The other thing I will say about the value that I find in Better Angels is that we are in fact forced to listen to the other side. And they are forced to listen to our side. That is something that is not common, because we all have our points of view and we want to say what we have to say. But when we sit in these circles, the fishbowl is one of the aspects of the workshop, where you have a group inside and a group outside, and the people inside are answering a question, and the people on the outside have to listen. And then you change places. So you're forced to listen, and you hear things that you don't normally hear. and you come away with a different understanding as you try to find something in common that you can actually agree on. So I have found it to be a valuable experience, and I hope that you will give some thought to it. I also hope that you have a lot of blue friends that are red friends that you can invite, because typically we're having more difficulty getting people from that side to participate. So if you know somebody who would, then please consider asking them, and as we go forward trying to set up workshops. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask a question. One of the reasons I wanted to be here today is because of what just happened on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, with 3 different groups, with 3 different perceptions of each other's, and 3 inabilities to sort of see each other and recognize what was happening. And so, rather than hearing lots of promotion about how great Better Angels is, can you give us some concrete examples of where you found common ground? What spoke to you in terms of the interactions and having to listen to people who you ordinarily would not have wanted to listen to?
Yeah, I can think of one, but Rob's wanting to answer that question.
Well, I can actually, I'm gonna make my presentation. Are you pretty much?
Yeah, I was pretty well done.
Let me.
Well, yeah, but that wasn't one I was thinking about.
I'm gonna answer your question, Bill, but before I get to it, I do wanna say this. Okay, I will get, can you hear me? Okay. Before I answer your question, I do want to say this, that if you detect any emotion coming from Better Angels, that's normal. Because this has been, for many of us, a very emotional situation. We all know that we have dealt with raw feelings, and there have been raw feelings on both sides. And when you see the power of what can happen, when you communicate with someone who you used to think was so foreign and so distant from you, it affects you, and it has affected me. And I know it has affected others. You can hear that emotion. But I'm going to tell you a vignette of why Better Angels is so powerful, which is going to answer Bill's question. Probably in around April or May of 2017, we decided to find exactly what Bill was asking about. Issues on which we could agree. How could we take concrete steps to move forward? And so we were asked to bring to the next meeting an issue which we felt we could get pretty much overwhelming agreement on one given issue. And people came to that next meeting, and there were a number of things that were brought up. One of the big things that was brought up was the gerrymander. And as you know, it was on the ballot in 2017, passed overwhelmingly, and it had overwhelming support in our group. And we had already agreed that that would be one issue. We were looking for others. So we all came. People came with ideas about veteran benefits, which was received warmly, but maybe not overwhelmingly. There were issues about parental leave, which actually happened to be brought up by a red, about making sure that people had parental leave. And there was some opposition to that, I think, but I decided that what I was going to do, since I had gotten involved with Dick and Karen Galloway, that I was going to bring Move to Amend to Better Angels. Move to Amend is all about getting big money out of politics. So I had been involved in these kinds of issues for most of my adult life, because I was an early member of Common Cause, which was trying to get special interest money out of politics. And that was formed right after the election of Richard Nixon. So I came prepared to talk about why I think this would be a good issue. So I have all my talking points lined up. And before I had a chance to speak, because we're going around, everybody is sharing their information. And Bill Fry stands up and he starts talking before I have a chance about getting big money out of politics. And he starts using all of my talking points. And he blew my mind. I mean, I had been doing better, I'd been doing Better Angels for a while, but we had never really gotten to the concrete. And so what I did was I was kind of in shock, and I stood up and I said, I really don't know what to say, because he said what I wanted to say. And well, I found a couple of things to say, but we got together later. I invited Bill to come to our next Move to Amend meeting, and he came, and what he actually did for us, he showed us, Move to Amend was supposed to be an organization which was directly trying to get out the money out of politics, and yet it had only been endorsed by progressive groups, like Black Lives Matter or Pantsuit Nation. I think that was the one that drove Bill crazy.
Move on.
Oh, MoveOn.org, that was another one. So he pointed out to us that if we truly want to be nonpartisan, that we have to take that off the literature. So Bill has been coming to our meetings on a regular basis. So there's an issue on which we can agree. Bill has kind of reformed us in one way, is now we're talking about something that he thought of, which is no ballot, no buck. But it's the same issue. In other words, if you don't have a ballot, you can't contribute money to the candidate. And that covers a wide range of things. I'm not going to get into that now, but the point is, we know those issues are out there. And that's what we're all about. Now, I do want to get to this, social media. In terms of the kinds of things that we say now, you know, I still post many things on Facebook, often about our president. And they're not nice things, and I know they're not, okay? And these guys still post things in favor of Donald Trump. But the difference is this, is that there are certain things that we have learned not to do. For example, I don't talk about the right-wing nut jobs that support Trump.
Except for me.
And these guys don't talk about the libtards that support Nancy Pelosi. So, you know what? We're not, they know, and they know, because I'm like you know me, they know me. And they know exactly how I feel about our president. But I don't have to feel that way about everybody that supports him, because I have learned they may have their reason or their rationale. I may not understand it, but they have. So we are now Facebook friends. And Greg and I agreed probably a year ago that we're going to become Facebook friends, and it was a challenge. I wasn't sure I could do it because of my posts. But we agreed that we would become Facebook friends, and if either of us put a post that we thought was not Better Angels-like, that we would put a frowning face on Facebook to let each other know in a subtle way that you are crossing the line. And believe me, he's gotten his share of frowning faces, and so have I. So, you know what? But as I said to you, we were able to talk all the way on this ride from Waynesville, Ohio, mostly not just about Donald Trump, but about other things, people that support him. We were talking about, I was talking about the Women's March on the way in and how unhappy I was with the leadership of the Women's March because of supporting Louis Farrakhan. So, but we talk about the extreme elements in both of our political situations. But having said that, what I want to do is, before I go further, because I want to open it up to other questions, I want to pass out sheets in case you would like to sign up for a better, or to learn more. You don't have to commit to a Better Angels workshop, but if you'd like to learn more about it, we want to pass that out. I will start down here. And now, what I'd like to do is open it up. Let's see how we're doing for time, okay? I want to open it up for questions, and you can ask a question of any of us. Anyone have questions? Yes?
Thank you. And if somebody knows more about this than I do, feel free. But have you heard of a group called Citizens Climate Lobby? I believe they were around before 2016. They're fairly focused. They're about taxing fossil fuels, and they're very committed to being bipartisan. I believe they won't talk to a Democratic senator until they have talked successfully to a Republican senator. They're that committed to being bipartisan. And I think they occasionally give workshops on how to talk to people who don't agree with you. Have you heard of them?
Rob, I can address it. I have heard of it, and there are some people who are members of the organization who are involved with that. And that's wonderful, and I would say that that is very much in the spirit of Better Angels on that specific issue. The way that this would play out with Better Angels is we don't, so we're a national organization, but all the activity is happening at the local levels, like our alliance in Southwest Ohio. There are other alliances across the country. Each alliance has the opportunity to identify an issue where there's common ground among reds and blues and where they want to work together. So Better Angels National would never say, you know, we're going to take on the issue of climate change, and so everybody's going to do that. Well, but what would happen is a Cincinnati alliance, let's, for instance, if that were to develop, and let's say that both reds and blues agreed on this issue, then you could take it on.
And they are a national group.
Exactly, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Susan.
How did you deal with all the emotion that you had against the deplorables? How did you deal with it?
Okay, well, when we first came into those first meetings, there's obviously a lot of apprehension because you know you're confronting people with whom you seemingly totally disagree. And you know what? Many of us have had experiences with our own family. And I've spoken to many people, blues and reds, who have said to me they can no longer even speak to members of their own family. So it was intense going in. But David was our moderator. He's a red, but he was trained to be a moderator. He actually never showed his stripes. We were allowed to show our stripes. He never showed his stripes, but he moderated. And initially it was actually David Blankenhorn and David. And David Blankenhorn works out of New York, and they had a fantastic program because what would happen is, in one sense, they would gather, for example, all the blues in the middle, and they would all talk. The blues would talk about maybe why they're blue, why, or maybe their feelings about reds. And they would share, and all the reds would be on the outside, and they would not be able to say anything. You had to listen, and it was only a blue discussion. And the blues were then asked, what is it about your side that you're critical of? And then people would go around and talk about where they were critical of each other. And then it was reversed. Then the reds would be on the inside, and the blues would then listen. And the reds would do it through the same process. And then we would all get together, and the moderator would ask for comments. And if any of the comments became overly partisan or critical of the other side, the moderator would say, stop. Said that we don't want to go there. Let's keep to the program. And which is to find your perceptions of the other people. Not to lecture, not to advocate. And what happened was, we were all very much surprised to hear the amount of commonality we had in the issues that we held sacred. And so that apprehension quickly disappears. Once you understand you're in an environment where it's safe to be who you are, but you're not going to be subject to extreme criticism. And so the apprehension goes away. Question?
Great, thank you. I'm wondering if members of your group are familiar with the work of Christopher Lynn Hedges, who has written, several dozen books. And basically, he is saying what you are saying. What he said of the Republican Party is, do not appeal to their better angels because they don't have any. But what he is saying about what you are doing is exactly what needs to be done. And what the oligarchs don't want is for us to be apart. Divide and conquer is what they have done, and this mitigates that. So if you are familiar, if you're not familiar with Chris Lynn Hedges, it would be wonderful for you to read his books and read his work. And when HCR or HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton called people the deplorables, he called that out. And Chris Lynn Hedges is probably as far left, so-called left, as you can get. But guess what? When you go way, way, way far right or far left, because life is a circle, you meet the people that you really care about. And I have talked with lots of people that voted for Donald Trump, lots of people in the Tea Party, because I care about that. And this is a wonderful thing that you're doing. But I would read the work of Chris Lynn Hedges. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
When Kuyar and I met for the first time after Better Angels, we met for lunch and had like a 3 to 4 hour something long. And the first thing that we tried to, but the first thing that we agreed upon, that we had to agree upon, is both the red and the blue has the extremes on the far outside. We gave that a nickname of the fringe. They are not. So when a white supremacist stands up on the courthouse steps and says, I'm a Republican, I'm a this, I'll be the first one, if I'm in the crowd, to say, no, you're not. Sit down, shut up. My advice to those kind of people, and if I can pick one on the far left, I won't name a name, but they're out there. They're Antifa, I'll just say it. Antifa, I would like to see, and Kuyar will, if they stand up and say, we're Democrats, no, you're not. We are the like-minded group. We have to take the people from within the fringe. We have to come together. We have to get numbers. Not just reds, not just blues. We got to come in, we got to make a real deep, dark purple. And then when we get that big, deep, dark purple full of numbers of reds and blues, that's when we can make our national move. We've got organizations in all 50 states. I think we're the fastest growing non-profit organization in the country right now. I think I read that. I could be wrong. But if not, you can say you heard it here first. So I just want to point that out, that we need to come together and eliminate them. When we get all fixed, then we'll try to work on them.
Back here. So, Rob is part of our steering committee for Move to Amend, and once he found Better Angels, he was only about half left for Move to Amend, and the other half was Better Angels. My question is, will you review for me, I thought I heard that Better Angels was actually founded in Lebanon. Is that true?
Yes.
When was that? And talk to me about the process of how this grew so fast. Not just that you got the public attention through NPR and MSNBC, but what were your people doing that got that attention?
Sure, I can speak to that. As I mentioned, I'm one of the 3 co-founders. So the first workshop ever was in South Lebanon. And then Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary, he found out about it and said, what can I do to help support this?
How did he find out?
He found out about it through a mutual contact in New York City. And so he wanted to make a documentary about it. He helped to spread the word, and a documentary is being made. But then the way that the word, obviously people heard about it through NPR, we started doing more workshops, and people said, how can I do a workshop in my community? So we realized this is a grassroots thing, right? This is not the primary work of, we have like 5 paid staff, and we like to say the primary work of the paid staff is to assist the volunteers who are doing the main work of the organization all across the country. So the way it works is, you can join from your computer, you go to better-angels.org, you become a member, and you say, I want to learn how to moderate a workshop. You get the training online. Or you say, I want to be a blue organizer for a workshop. We give you a little bit of help and guidance online, a connection to other people who are doing this across the country, and then you're off to the races. So if you're in California, you can learn how to become a moderator, you get a blue organizer or a red organizer, and you can get a workshop going and then an alliance going, and bam, you're off to the races. So that's the way it spread, was we started just by we did a bus tour in various places of workshops, and then those people just took off from there and planted more workshops and Better Angels alliances, and people all across the country are becoming moderators and organizers and doing it in their communities. So all you have to do is you can go online, become a member. We have monthly calls that you can join for as little as $10 a year. We have monthly calls. We've had Dick Gephardt, Peter Yarrow, red and blue speakers on our monthly calls, and we have resources for you to get plugged in and to do the work yourself.
There's a question back here. Oh.
Hi, thanks for coming. I would like to say thank you again, and I agree with Bill Fry and Rob Weidenfeld. I think everyone in this group who's seen me talk much at all about Move to Amend or getting big money out of politics, I think we all agree we don't want foreign governments influencing our government. We probably would mostly agree that we don't want lobbyists having a bit more control over politicians than the voters feel like they have. And it's come to my attention through Move to Amend because I've actually gotten a mailing asking for a donation. I've gotten emails now from a conservative group, and I'm so happy to see this conservative group out there, even though I don't know much about them. But it's a conservative group called Take Back Our Republic, and it's all about getting big money out of politics. And I'm wondering if your group has had any discussion about Take Back Our Republic or any other conservative groups that you're aware of about getting big money out of politics. Thank you.
I have not heard of that organization, but I'm going to look them up when I go home. I'm intrigued.
Yes.
Say anything, Bill or Rob, about that question?
I was getting ready to type it in here, so I have it.
I've heard of it. I know it's out there, and I don't recall which red friend I was speaking to who mentioned that to me. I have not researched it, Deb, so I don't know. I don't know the details, but I know they're out there, which gives me hope, because it's an issue on which we can build a foundation. And so I can't really speak any more than that. Questions?
Have any legislative bodies taken any interest in your techniques and organization, or have you taken your message to any of them?
We have not really began talking to politicians that much. We've had interest. For instance, Brian Fitzpatrick is a Republican congressman from the Philadelphia area. He was interested in meeting with us. But that is frankly an area where we're just beginning to dive into. And in fact, we have, there's a professor from New Jersey who works with a legislative assistant. She actually works on the legislation in Congress. And they're coming up with a way to connect alliances, to help alliances address issues that could be presented to members of Congress. So instead of a lobbyist coming to a member of Congress and saying, hey, this issue is really important, we'll have bottom-up energy, bottom-up grassroots power saying, red and blue numbers saying, hey, this is an issue, and with their help, with this legislative expert and this professor, citizens begin to craft solutions to problems where reds and blues agree on. So we're just getting started on that, and it's a really important area of work that we'll be diving more into this year.
Any more questions?
I just want to follow up. Sometime last year, we actually in Lebanon had a meeting with Steve Wilson, who was the state senator from that area. He's a red, and he was fascinated by what was happening with Better Angels. And I can tell you that I had a personal party in my home with a number of conservative friends that I had, and I invited Greg to come over to the house, and Noha was there, and one of the attendees was Jonathan Deaver, who at the time was the conservative representative from the 28th House District, which Jessica Miranda, she just defeated him in the last election. And even though I had Jonathan Deaver, and I know him and I know his family, I mean, he knows I supported Jessica Miranda. But long story short is that, yes, that is one of the goals that we have, is to keep on reaching out to let them know, because you know what, we believe that if we need to model for our state legislatures and for our Congress that this can be done, that you can find agreement. There are things on which people on both sides can agree. You may not get the extremes to agree, but most of us are more towards the middle than we are towards the extreme. And so we hope to increase that, and we hope to do more of that.
I see 2 more questions. Can we take them? Sure. Okay.
Hi, I have a sort of very small question. Are you working with student organizations, high school and college, to get sort of a discussion within the home, maybe with family and parents?
It's a good question. Maybe you all can help me with this too. I'm jogging my memory. We have gotten a lot of inquiries from high schools and colleges. I'll give you one story of college. So there's the head of the Young Democrats and the head of the Young Republicans at a college in Iowa. They were roommates during the 2016 election. And then they found out about Better Angels, and they said, gosh, they had built a friendship. And then they found out about Better Angels, and they said, how could we do this on our college campus? So this year, they are unrolling Better Angels on their campus. You've got the former head of the Young Democrats and the former head of the Young Republicans doing this on their college campus. So I think that's beautiful. And there are other college campuses. For instance, we've started doing some what we call Better Angels debates, which is a slightly modified form of the workshop on college campuses. We did one at East Tennessee State University. So that's beginning. We have done some workshops in high schools as well, and I think we'll continue to do more of that because that is a very important aspect of this.
Back here.
We're not, but we should be. You can help us.
Back here.
Well, listen, thank you.
Point it straight at your mouth, Martha.
Yeah, okay, thanks a lot for being here. I know a lot of us are feeling, I believe, that health care is a deep issue for everybody. Surely this is not just blue and red, you know. And so I wonder whether, in fact, you have found that both sides might agree even on, say, Medicare for all, so that nobody would have to be without a doctor. We're a rich country. We can afford that. In fact, it wouldn't even cost much because we pay for it through our taxes according to income. So, I mean, is there any hope we could come together on that?
Frankly, we have not had discussions on that. And I think because healthcare, after Donald Trump was elected, became almost a toxic issue to discuss across the aisle. And it was one of the more challenging issues. And frankly, we're trying not to focus on those issues that are the most challenging at this point. Because you know what? You have to begin with baby steps. And for us, the baby steps are areas on which we agree. I would like to believe that once we can deal collectively and together on issues like getting big money out of politics, or any other gerrymandering, or any of the issues that affect all of us, that we will pave the road to get to the point where we can talk about healthcare and we can talk about some of the more divisive issues. I also want to mention one other thing. David was informed sometime, I guess it was, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, that there was an inquiry about Better Angels from the Muskingum community. Muskingum County, where Muskingum College is. And so they wanted to hear about Better Angels. So what happened was I was the only blue that was available. So the four of us, this was quite a combination, the four of us, David, Bill, Greg, and I drove to Muskingum College one day, and we did a presentation before a combination of students, administrators, professors, even the mayor of, I believe it was the mayor of Cambridge, or New Concord, excuse me, the mayor of New Concord, which is where Muskingum College is, and we did and he, by the way, was a Red, but we did a presentation, and they were very receptive, and I don't know what's happened subsequently to that, and I know that Greg has made appearances with Couillard at another university. So, yeah, these are all venues that are ripe and are things that we're seeking to find.
I wanted to address your question real quick. You know, before we take on an issue like healthcare for all, we need to fix our government. Because if we can fix our government, then the money that you're talking about might be there, that they're not just spending it on all the lobbyists and all the special interests out there. So, frankly, right now, if we try to do that, I think personally that our government couldn't afford it. We're already $21 trillion past broke. We're so far into debt, it's ridiculous. That would add a lot to it. And the money's there. The money for something, you know, along those lines is there, but it's being pilfered away right now. So, as Better Angels, my personal opinion is we need to work on fixing our government issues before we can work on all the big social issues out there, because we are going to have a fight amongst each other inside on social issues. And you got to come up with 75% of the people. That's pretty hard to do, because I know from my side, the red is going to be, where's the money?
I'd just like to suggest you can flip that script as well, which is that if you can fix a lot of the social issues, you'll go a long way toward fixing the political issues.
David, point out that we just had a vote and the health issue did come in second place. We just did have a vote in our last two meetings. We've been putting this together. And the two top things to vote on is what we selected to vote on. The one was no ballot, no buck. The other one was healthcare reform across the board, red and blue. And they took a vote for politicians, right? And but it did come in second place. So I have a feeling, and it's 75% is what we're trying to obtain. So 75%, you got to go with that. That's between the reds and the blues. 75%, both sides. So it did come into a very close second place. So I'm sure that that's the sequence that'll follow. And as soon as we get this worked out, that'll be one of the very first things, because that's something that reaches everybody from the gutter to the top.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Again?
I think most of us can agree on this wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for coming today. You have shown us the way. I have to tell you, it's really challenging for me, and I really appreciate you working out there for us all. Oh my goodness, I'm not following my own advice. Thank you so much for being here. You are a great audience. Thank you for participating today. Thank you for being here for the Better Angels.
Sign the sheets.
Sign the sheets. And one more hand for Better Angels today. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, come up and attack them now.